Okay, our fourth story out front. President Christie, days after publicly taking on his own party over storm relief, New Jersey's governor got a big stamp of approval. There was a poll that just came out from Fairleigh Dickinson University, gave Governor Chris Christie 73% approval rating among New Jersey voters. Now, that's really important and significant, and the reason is because New Jersey is a big D Democrat state. Went for President Obama in each of the past two presidential elections. So, is Christie the biggest contender for 2016? Out front tonight, John Avlon, Reihan Salam, and Roland Martin. All right, this is a guy that he says what he thinks, Roland. He says what he thinks. Okay, so let me start off with this. A lot of Republicans, though, John, have been questioning his party loyalty in the aftermath of Hurricane Sandy because, you know, in the final days of the campaign, he appeared with and complimented President Obama. Let's just and then afterwards, he got very angry about the vote, right? And he slammed John Boehner. So, loving Obama, hating Boehner, here he is.
Our delegation asked for a meeting with the speaker at that time. They were refused. I called the speaker 4 times last night after 11:20, and he did not take my calls. So you'd have to ask the speaker. It's just, it is why the American people hate Congress.
When the president does things that deserve praise, I will give him praise. And when the president does things that deserve scorn, I'll give him scorn.
You know what? He should work with Bob Hand in his job. Our producer. He's the kind of guy who would call someone 4 times after 11:20 if they weren't answering the phone and say, answer the phone. That kind of says something about Chris Christie.
It does. He's relentless. And look, I mean, he's an independent-minded guy. That's why the poll numbers are doing so well. And that, of course, is what upsets the sort of predictable hyper-partisans that end up being the bulwark of a party. Those folks are irritated with Chris Christie. They're members of the Romney camp that blame him somehow for losing the election, for being a governor of a state instead of, frankly, a predictable partisan hack and politicizing a hurricane disaster relief. But that's precisely what makes so many independents and centrists and folks across the board like Chris Christie. If the conservagencia doesn't like it, great. They're actually irrelevant in the grand scheme of things, except in their own chattering class.
Reihan,
I take that as a direct affront.
I'm looking at you.
Okay,
because Reihan wrote that Christie has, quote, lost some of his luster on the right. So how much damage has he done? Because after all, the guy's got to win a primary.
Yeah, that's very true. But here's the thing. You've got to work the angles, Erin. So the possibility is that, yeah, he's not necessarily going to be the conservative stalwart champion. There are going to be a lot of people competing for that role. And guess what? If there are 5 or 6 guys who are competing to be the conservative stalwart champion, who comes right down the middle and is like, hey, I'm a different kind of Republican. I appeal to swing voters. I can actually win this election for you in a tough environment. So hold your noses. Vote for me, even if you're not with me 100%. And I can actually win the White House. That's how Bill Clinton pulled it off in 1992. He took on a ton of liberal constituencies, but because the Democratic brand was damaged in 92, he was able to distance himself from it to help Democrats.
Well, much like the Republican brand is
exactly, and the Republican brand is in touch.
Last I checked.
Look, that doesn't mean that I approve of everything Christie has said and done.
Yes, Roland.
Last I checked, criticizing Congress is not going to somehow hurt you with the American people. So, you know, Governor Christie is frankly walking on, he's like Jesus walking on water, criticizing Republicans and Democrats in Congress. But here's the other piece you have to keep in mind. We are 4 years away. This whole notion of what's going to happen, so many things could very well happen. But if Chris Christie is able to reach out to grassroots folks, he's not all about trying to appeal to Republicans in Congress, Republican governors. It's about appealing to grassroots people. If he's able to show that kind of enthusiasm, that kind of energy, that's actually going to drag other people along.
I remember his speech at the Ronald Reagan Library, and the woman who asked him the question, he was very presidential in that speech. But there are times, and I think he'd be the first to admit it, when you know, saying what he thinks is much more important than being a statesman. Let's just play some of them for all of you.
The people who pretend to be serious commentators who've wrote about this are among the most ignorant people I've ever heard in my life.
Let me tell you something. I can go back and forth with you as much as you want. And let me tell you something. After you graduate from law school, you conduct yourself like that in a courtroom, your rear end's going to get thrown in jail, idiot. If what you want to do is put on a show and giggle every time I talk, well, then I have no interest in answering your question. So if you'd like to...
As we're giggling and watching it.
There's a big problem here, which is that Chris Christie's style is very appealing to people like me who grew up in Brooklyn, New York, people from the Northeast who like that kind of ethnic tough guy aspect. The question is it going to play in the South and the West with people who find that to be a bullying tone, who don't find it to be very attractive? I think it could work, but I think that it's not obvious that it's going to work. It works with some people, not necessarily with everybody.
Whoa, time out. As a native Texan, we don't mind people who speak truth. I mean, let's just be honest. So it's not all about a Northeast thing. The key here is, are you an authentic politician? Do you speak your mind? And this is somebody who was established. He will take it to Republicans. He will take it to Democrats. That is appealing to people because, frankly, folks are tired of politicians who keep lying, who keep saying what they think we want to hear versus what we need to hear.
He is genuine.
He is, and people are starved for authenticity in politics, Erin, and they're also starved for kind of independent leadership that's principled and no holds barred. Just take a look at that poll that came out today. If we really break down the numbers, it's unbelievable because it's not just 73% of New Jerseyans. Look at 80% of independents, 62% of Democrats, 69% of non-whites, and 70% of women. I mean, Republicans got to be sitting in a room plotting how.
It's like the Messiah with numbers like that.
That shows the crossover appeal of that kind of independent leadership. Republicans got to be looking at that playbook and ask themselves, I can get some more of that, Chris Christie.
Let's see what he looks like after a couple $100 million of super PAC money goes after him.
That'll bruise anybody, even a bruiser. All right, thanks to all three of you. By the way, Chris Christie's comment to the Star-Ledger, the newspaper of record in his state, yeah, you're damn right I'd be more ready when asked about running for 2016. Looks like he's getting ready.